All right, everybody, this is going to be the summary episode. I have watched all 8 episodes of Ancient Apocalypse by Graham Hancock on Netflix. Overall impression, very well done. There were some weaker episodes, some things. It's unfortunate. My one critique about this, and I realized that Netflix was kind of sticking their neck out on this a little bit, and there are business decisions that need to be made. But I honestly think that each of the episodes actually should have been about an hour long, because although the series hit on many of the high points of Graham's argument, that we are a species with amnesia, that we have forgotten something of great importance from our past, which is likely an advanced civilization that was more or less wiped off the face of the earth. And the evidence of their being in existence is found in mythologies and the rise of technologies seemingly spontaneously at different times in the world, etc., etc. The series does a good job. Some of the episodes in this are positively excellent. I thought the map portion, dealing with the Peri Reis map, Orontius Phineas map, was an excellent piece. The Bimini Road thing's kind of been done to death. I get why Graham wants to bring it up again. I'm not sold one way or the other on it, but the map piece that's a very different thing. The Malta episode was superb, as was the Göbekli Tepe. The best episode was the Göbekli Tepe, the Sages episode. To me, those were heavily bolted down to the ground and really brought forward some of Graham's arguments. There is a critique. I've been looking at some of the critiques of this series. And frankly, most of the people that are critiquing it are missing the point. One of the critiques that came out was that Graham has yet to demonstrate the actual evidence of an advanced civilization. First of all, this series, Graham, again, not in one place, which is kind of disappointing, but in, large chunks towards the ends of the series, Graham actually talks about what kind of civilization he thinks has disappeared. He says it is not a civilization that went to the moon. So it's not like a 20th century, 21st century civilization. It's one of the things that really Graham gets criticized for in an unwarranted way. Because when people say advanced civilization in the Lost Ice Age, they're assuming you mean flying cars and all this sort of stuff, or technology equal to our own. Graham's not saying that, and anybody who wants to wrestle with this needs to have a bit of a cognitive shift about what it means to be an advanced civilization. We discovered longitude, at least Europe did, in the late 18th century. That could be considered an advanced civilization. They were sailing the earth. They had engineering skills. They had mathematics skills. But they didn't have nuclear reactors. They didn't have, TVs and electricity and all that. But it was still advanced. This is the sort of thing that Graham really needs to clarify, because a lot of his critics are getting hung up on when he says advanced civilization, people are getting hung up on the idea of a 1960s Atlantis movie with flying cars and this, that, and the other thing, and, visitors from Alpha Centauri on a regular. That's not what he's talking about. So I hope that Graham will somewhere really lock this down. One spot, what is he talking about when he says advanced civilization? The critics are saying he has no evidence. Well, frankly, there's a reason why you might not have evidence. And I think the answer lies in the fact that in episode 8, it talks about the percentage of the population of the world that was killed off. And I would argue that the biggest kill-off of a civilization of human beings, so they indicated 50 to 60% of the human population was probably killed off at the end of the last ice age. People would say, well, obviously, that leaves half to 40%. There should be much more evidence of, an advanced civilization. If you assume that it was evenly spread across the earth. So during the age of discovery, the quote-unquote advanced civilizations were isolated in particular parts of the world. And although they went to different parts of the world and established colonies, it was very small, it was very minor. The footprint was very, very small. That's what I think is happening here. The advanced civilization was obviously situated around the coastlines. You had ice sheets to contend with, you had, and clearly it was an ocean-going civilization if they mapped the earth, etc. That means the evidence, the people of that civilization, if the bulk of them in that civilization were either on an island in the ocean or hugging the coastlines, which is the most likely prospect, then rather, when we say 50 to 60% of the human population is killed off, if you're living on the coastlines or on an island, that number is probably like 90 to 95% of that population is killed. So I edited that because there was something I needed to add that I didn't add. So 90 to 95% of the population is killed off. Why? Why more on the coast than on it? Because the sea levels rose. There was a drastic rise in the sea levels along the coastline and amongst anything that would have been an island at that time. And so it all would have gone underwater, or a huge portion of it would have gone underwater. And frankly, people haven't looked that hard at where this type of civilization might be. So the evidence that you're looking for this type of civilization is either wiped away by the waves or is deep under the sea. Right. That's what I wanted to say. One more critique of this episode or of this series. It's something that actually people have said to me before and I think needs to be taken account of. Graham is very big into drawing on myths and folklore and oral history of Indigenous peoples. But one of the things that Graham never really has done, not in his written material nor in this, is actually talking to the Indigenous peoples themselves. Graham needs to, one of the critiques that I saw of him already is that he's propagating a white supremacist narrative because he's not talking to Indigenous peoples. I don't know that I would go quite that far, but I would definitely say I think Graham would do well to actually focus on speaking to some of the Indigenous wisdom keepers around the world that have these myths of the floods, etc. Rather than recounting what they're saying, what are they saying? And I think that's a weakness in Graham's approach to this that I think he needs to address. And I hope he will in upcoming episodes, which leads me into, this has been an excellent series. It's been very, very good. It's got some weak points. It's got some strong points. I am encouraging everybody to please bandy together, bug Netflix so that we can get a second season on this. We did not deal with the Amazon at all. We did not deal with Africa at all. We did not deal very much with Australasia and none in terms of China, India, etc. And I know Graham has things to say. So, Netflix, bring on season 2 and expand the episodes to 45 minutes each at least, because that way more of the argument can get out. But I am encouraging everybody to talk to Netflix and let's get this done and get Graham a second season of this excellent show.